This is the Heybike Hauler, and it's a cargo e-bike that's made to make carrying cargo or child passengers a breeze. Heybike offers the Hauler in both a single and dual battery configuration, both of which come with some of the most affordable price tags we've seen for this style of bike. As always, we tested its real-world range, climbing ability, stopping power, and speed in our standardized performance tests, and I also loaded the bike up with some extra weight to see how well it could serve its intended purpose. So, did the Hauler live up to its name? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report. My name's John. If you're new here, thanks for joining me today. We're known for those standardized performance tests that I mentioned in the intro, and we pride ourselves on making the best e-bike reviews on YouTube. So if you're shopping for an e-bike and you want to get the most bang for your buck, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can find your way back to our channel and also find out when we post new reviews. We also recently started a weekly show where we talk about all kinds of things related to e-bikes, so be sure to check that out on Sundays. And then if this or any of our reviews are able to help you decide on a bike you want to purchase, we ask that you do us a favor in return by using our affiliate link in the video description to help support our channel and keep new reviews coming your way. Business aside, let's get into the nitty-gritty and talk about a few highlights from the Hauler. I do want to start off with price, since this is one of the most affordable cargo e-bikes we've reviewed. The base model, which includes a single 48-volt, 864 watt-hour battery in the down tube, is priced around $1,500 at the time of filming. We were sent the dual battery version, which includes an additional 600 watt-hour battery slotted in behind the seat tube, and this spec level is priced right around $1,700. Both price levels are about as low as you'll find for a cargo bike, so this one should be on your radar if you're shopping on a budget. The next thing I want to talk about is the Hauler's motor and pedal assist system. Cargo bikes need to have a lot of power to move passengers or packages, and this bike checks that box with a powerful 750 watt rear hub motor with a peak of 1400 watts and 80 newton meters of torque. It also has a cadence sensor that gives you full power as long as the pedals are moving, so even when you're riding the bike with extra weight, the motor is doing the heavy lifting and the experience is nice and easy. Finally, this bike has Bluetooth connectivity that allows it to be paired with the Heybike app, and that's not a feature that comes with many bikes at this price point. The app allows you to track ride data, access turn-by-turn navigation, change the bike's maximum speed, and even adjust the motor output in each of its pedal assist settings. I'll walk you through the app later in the review, but for now, just know that it's one of the more robust apps we've seen, especially with an entry-level bike. Next, let's do a quick run through of the Hauler's remaining specs and components. The bike has a 7-speed Shimano tourney drivetrain with a 52-tooth chainring and a 12 to 28-tooth cassette. Its brakes are a hydraulic disc system from RSX with 2 piston calipers and 180mm rotors, and it has 20-inch by 3-inch street tires with hippo skin puncture protection from Chaoyang and plastic fenders on both wheels. Heybike spec'd the Hauler with a huge and extremely comfortable spring saddle with a release lever that allows it to be folded forward so the rear battery is accessible. There's an integrated light system with a headlight and a tail light that also serves as a brake light. Both lights include turn signals that are activated by a module on the left handlebar. Then up in the cockpit, the Hauler has an adjustable stem with a set of 690mm BMX-style riser handlebars with locking ergonomic faux leather grips. The module for the turn signals also includes a horn and a switch for the lights. Then there's a color LED display mounted centrally on the handlebars, and then the right side includes the bike's over-the-bar shifter and throttle lever. The Hauler includes foldable footboards, wheel guards with pegboard cutouts, and a huge cargo basket for keeping all your gear contained, but it's also compatible with some other passenger and cargo accessories like an orbiter handrail and side luggage racks or baskets. At least at the time of filming, Heybike doesn't offer any seating options for the cargo rack, but I did test the Thule Yep Maxi child seat, which is one of the more popular third-party options out there, and it worked well and locked into place securely. And then a few last things to wrap this section up. The dual battery version of the Hauler weighs roughly 102 pounds, while the single battery option weighs about 93. The main battery weighs 11 pounds, while the secondary power pack is 8.5. The bike has a total payload capacity of up to 440 pounds, including the rider, but Heybike doesn't provide a maximum weight capacity for the cargo rack itself. The bike is UL 2849 certified, and it comes in 3 two-tone color options. This one is called Golden Dream, but there's also Blue Ivy and Milk White, both of which have black accents just like this one. That should wrap up all the finer details, so let's jump into our test sections and see how this bike performed. For our first test section, we'll look at the Hauler's brake test results. We found its average stopping distance by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, applying the brakes, and then measuring the distance the bike traveled before coming to a complete stop. We repeated this process 3 times and ended up with an average of 20 feet and 6 inches. So in the big picture, that includes bikes of all categories, this is a really solid result. We're always happy to see anything around the 20-foot mark. Compared with other long-tail cargo bikes though, the Hauler was a foot beyond the current category average of 19 feet and 6 inches, but I think that makes perfect sense when considering this bike's weight. At 102 pounds, the dual battery version of the Hauler is a pretty beefy bike, and it weighs in about 16 pounds heavier than average when looking at similar bikes we've tested. Cargo bikes are usually pretty heavy anyway, but this one is definitely up there with some of the heaviest bikes we've tested, which means that its brake system has to work a little harder than average to slow the bike down. That said, I was pretty impressed with how these brakes felt and how the bike behaved when braking. The tires could squeal pretty loudly, but otherwise the brakes had good bite. They kept my speed controlled even when I tested the bike with some added cargo, and the Hauler stayed nice and straight when coming to a complete stop, so overall its braking felt super safe and controlled. All in all, the Hauler's off to a great start, and we give it a solid 2 thumbs up in this test. Next up, let's dive into our speed test. The first goal of this test is to see how fast the bike is in each of its pedal assist settings, but secondly, we analyze its overall speed profile to make sure it feels intuitive to use. Now, things were a little unusual with the Hauler. The bike had 5 pedal assist levels to begin with, but once I paired with the Heybike app, that number was cut down to 3. Additionally, the app allowed me to change the bike's maximum speed to switch to a class 3 mode, so I did 3 total tests while pedaling, and then a 4th to see how quickly the throttle could get up to speed. Let's go see how they all went, and then I'll meet you back here to go over the results. All right, so we are here for a speed test on the Heybike Hauler, and we're starting off with no pedal assist, going kind of between 9.5 and 10 miles per hour here with pretty light effort, honestly. Just kind of want to see what the motor is going to do. So let's go ahead and go up to PAS1. All right, little bit of a nudge there. Definitely not, a drastic dose of power, but we got a little boost in speed up to kind of between 10 and 10.5 miles per hour. Yeah, kind of holding more around 10.5. All right, let's go up to PAS2. And shift up to, I think, 5th gear. All right. We're going around 14 miles per hour here. So yeah, moving right along. Feels good. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS3. Wow, okay. Definitely quite a punch from that one. And I'm up in 7th gear, so that is the max. We are up to around 19 miles per hour, maybe between 19 and 19 and a half. Okay, and then the bike is set to 20 miles per hour for the max speed right now, so let's see if we can hit that in PAS4. All right, yep, we're kind of right at that limit. So then I wouldn't really expect anything different in PAS5, at least not on flat ground. Let's go ahead and see what happens. Yeah, I mean, just again, moving right along, holding pretty steady. All right, we are here on the Heybike Hauler for a speed test. So you'll see that I have the app connected to the bike. And when I do that, there are 3 pedal assist settings instead of 5. So we'll do our speed test with this setup and see what happens here. So I'm starting off pedaling with no assist, going right around 8 miles per hour. With just my own leg power. Well, actually up toward 9. A little variation in the path there, but yeah, holding pretty steady, so we'll say 9. Let's go up to PAS1. Okay, that's actually, had to relax there. just to get the motor to engage, but it looks like the motor's kind of wanting to hold right around 10 miles per hour here. All right, let's go ahead and go up to PS2. Whoa, okay, bit of a jump there. Let's shift up to fourth gear, maybe fifth. Yeah, we'll go fifth. And we are going around 13.5 miles per hour here, maybe up to 14 in this setting at times. Yep, that looks about right. Let's go up to PS3 and finish things off. Shift up to 7th. Kind of blasting off here with this one. And we exceeded 20 miles per hour, but then we are settling back down below it. And kind of ghost pedaling here, or at least having to move my feet a little bit faster to keep up. But yeah, I mean, overall feels pretty good. So let's go ahead and see what happens in Class 3 mode. All right, we are back for a Class 3 speed test here with the app paired to the bike. So start things off kind of in the same place in PAS1, right around 10 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and go up to 2. All right, that puts us at, yeah, kind of about that same 13.5, maybe 14-ish miles per hour in PAS2. And then, all right, let's see what happens in PAS3. I think we're just gonna kind of take off like a rocket here. Yep, that's exactly what's happening. I am ghost pedaling now above 20. So just basically spinning the cranks freely up to 27, 28. All right, yeah, we are hitting that Class 3 limit. So we will call it there. All right, we're back to do a throttle acceleration test from 0 to 20. Let's see how quickly the bike gets up to speed. We'll start in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, I was kind of worried that might be a little punchy based on the pedal test, but feels nice and steady. We're up to 19, 20, going a little bit above 20, but the motor just stopped. And so now we're kind of settling back down. And we'll see when it re-engages, kind of right there. All right, and then we are holding at 20. So, all right, everything looks good. Let's head back to the studio. So to recap those results, we'll start with a test that had 5 pedal assist levels. I started off pedaling at 9.7 miles per hour without the motor, and then once I engaged the pedal assist system, I averaged 10.5 in PAS1, 13.8 in PAS2, 19.2 in PAS3, and then 20 miles per hour in both PAS4 and 5. Then in the tests with the app, PAS1 started off at 10 miles per hour, PAS2 brought me up to 13.6, and then in the Class 2 test, PAS3 stopped at 20 miles per hour, but it continued all the way up to 28 miles per hour, where it should in the Class 3 test. First things first, I reached out to Heybike to see if it was normal to end up with only 3 assist levels after pairing with the app, but I haven't yet heard back, so hopefully if it's not, they can correct that with an update. Usually when looking at a graph of the data from this test, we look for an angled line that shows consistent increases in speed and power. Overall, the bike did pretty well in PAS 1 through 3 when it was set to a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour, regardless of how many assist levels it had. But outside of that, there's some room for improvement. With 5 assist levels, PAS 3, 4, and 5 all landed in the same neighborhood, at least on flat ground. And then with 3 assist levels in Class 3 mode, we'd have preferred to see faster speeds across the board when compared to the Class 2 test, instead of PAS 3 being the only place where the bike speeds differed. All things considered, we can't really hold anything against the bike though, as its motor output can be completely customized and tuned through the Heybike app, which is very cool. We noticed that the bike was consistently about a mile per hour faster in reality than it was set to within the app, but it's still very cool to be able to completely personalize how the bike behaves. As you saw in the video clips, the Hauler's acceleration could be a little bit punchy at times, which is fairly normal for cargo bikes with rear hub motors. They're often a little overpowered so they can handle the extra weight from cargo or passengers, and as I expected, this bike felt a lot more controlled when I tested it with a 55-pound sandbag on the cargo rack. I was happy to know that the throttle's acceleration felt nice and controlled regardless of the extra weight, and I also liked that the throttle had different speed limits at each assist level, so finding the right speed was easy. Ultimately, this test was a little bit of a mixed bag, but considering its customization options, we definitely give the Hauler a pass. Next is our range test, where we found the Hauler's minimum and maximum range by riding it in 2 separate tests using its highest and lowest pedal assist levels until its battery was completely drained. To save on time, we tested the bike with only the main battery and got a low and high end bracket of 27.1 and 50.9 miles. And then using math, we figured out the number of watt hours the bike used per mile. So based on those real world results, we estimate that the Hauler would travel between 45.9 and 86.2 miles with both batteries. Now, Heybike advertises a range of up to 55 miles with the single battery version and then up to 85 with the dual battery configuration, and we consider both to be reasonable considering our results. Compared to other cargo bikes we've tested with rear hub motors, the Hauler's results were a little below average despite its larger than average battery, but there are likely a couple of good reasons for that. First, just like in the brake test, the bike's weight probably played a role. The heavier a bike is, the more energy it takes to move, so with the Hauler being heavier than average, it was also naturally less efficient. Second, there was one bike in particular that skewed the data somewhat, at least in the low power test. With that bike taken out, the Hauler was only about 5 miles below average instead of about 12. Overall, we're pretty satisfied with the bike's results. A maximum range of nearly 51 miles is a lot of distance that can be covered on a single charge. Do keep in mind that the more weight you add, the less range you'll get, so it's probably a good idea to do your own range test when you have the bike loaded up with whatever you plan to carry around. But speaking of charge, we were happy to see a fast 4-amp charger included with the bike. It would have been nice to have a second charger with the dual battery configuration, but the main battery can be recharged in about 4.5 hours, while the secondary unit can be topped up in a little over 3 hours. And then one quick note about the batteries before we move on. Both have on-off switches that we sometimes had to turn off in order to deactivate the bike's light system. It wasn't really a problem aside from having to remember to turn them back on again when I wanted to go for a ride, but it is something to be aware of. And then FYI, the main battery also has a USB port, so you can use it to recharge your phone or other USB-powered devices. The last measurable test section to discuss is our hill test, which we do at an infamous hill called Hellhole Trail. This is part of our local bike path network, so it's a paved route, it's 1/3 of a mile long, and it has a 12% average grade, so it's a pretty tough climb. Our rider for this one is Justin, so I'll pass you over to him for a while so you can see how the Hauler did on throttle power and with its maximum level of pedal assist.
All right, we are out on Hellhole on the Heybike Hauler. Their cargo bike, and we're right now doing the throttle test. We're gonna see how it does. So far, we're just hitting this hill. We're about 12.6 miles per hour, 12.1, 11.5, 10.2, 9.6, 9.2, 8.53, 8.0, 7.8, 7.4. See what it bottoms out. Yeah, it looks like it's going to bottom out right about 7.4. Say the motor is maybe a little bit above average. I'll let you, in terms of noise, I'll let you listen to it through this next steep section and then after, so you can hear what it sounds like when it ramps up speed-wise. So yeah, through that section, went to about 8.6 or so. And yeah, I do think that that's right about where the motor's at. Kind of just slightly above average in terms of noise. Above average, I mean a little bit louder. But it's not super high pitched, and I do like that. And yeah, you'll be able to throttle up a hill like Hellhole on this, at least if you're around my weight, about 180, 185. So let's go check the tape and see how it did. All right, we are out now on the pedal test on the Heybike Hauler, and as always, I'm trying to let the bike do most of the work here. Just kind of pedaling casually, and it does feel a little more peppy when I'm pedaling. So hitting this hill right about 13.5, 12.3, 12.1, 11.6, 11.5, 11.3, 11.2. Yeah, so bottom about 11.2. I'm in 5th gear, I've not had to shift yet. I can hear the motor more as well when I'm pedaling here. I'll let you listen through this next section. So I shifted down into fourth, but I mean, it is cruising through this. So I think we'll have a pretty darn good result here. We shift back to sixth, maybe even into seventh to finish this out here. And we'll go to the tape. We'll see how the hauler did.
As you can see, the hauler did a solid job in both tests. We consider any bike that can climb that hill to be successful, but of course we'll take a look at how it did compared to similar bikes we've tested. Justin finished the throttle portion in 1 minute and 29 seconds with an average of 12.2 miles per hour. His pedal test results were definitely faster though, with a time of 1 minute and 16 seconds at 14.3 miles per hour. In both cases, these results were a little below average compared to other cargo bikes we've tested, but again, weight seemed to be the biggest factor. The hauler's maximum motor output of 1400 watts and 80 newton meters of torque are both right on par with what we'd expect. So for perspective, the other cargo bikes we used for comparison averaged 1 minute and 19 seconds on throttle and 1 minute and 9 seconds when pedaling, so the hauler was only about 7 to 10 seconds behind. I mentioned earlier that I did some testing with a 55-pound sandbag in the cargo basket here, and I spent the majority of that time at our secondary test location called Pilot Hill. This other location is a little bit closer to our office, and it's not quite as extreme as Hellhole, but it's still not one you'd want to pedal up without help from a motor. My testing showed that the extra weight reduced the hauler's climbing speed by about 20 seconds or 29% when throttling, but the difference when pedaling was only about 9 seconds or 13%. Bottom line, this bike definitely has the power to move some added weight, whether you prefer to pedal or let the motor do all the heavy lifting on throttle power. If you're in a hurry, you might want to add some of your own effort, but I think we answered the question of whether the hauler can indeed haul, and the answer is a solid yes. All of our testing can be helpful in showing you how a bike performs, but it doesn't cover how a bike feels to ride, so that's what we'll talk about here in the ride quality section. We've identified a few main factors that contribute to the ride, things like sizing, comfort, suspension, motor engagement, the user interface, and a few others. Let's head back out to the bike paths one more time and talk about some of the big ones, and then I'll see you back here again to go a little bit more in depth. All right, so let's talk about ride quality here on the Heybike Hauler. So of course this is a long tail cargo bike with a, I would say, pretty upright riding position. Let's see, I have a good leg extension right now. My arms are kind of outstretched in front of me, but not too low. The riding position is adjustable though. So there is a single frame size that's intended for riders from 5'3" up to 6'6", and you get about 6 inches of adjustment in saddle height with your seat post, and then you have kind of 2 points of adjustment up front. You have an adjustable stem that you can change the angle of if you loosen that up with some Allen wrenches. So that allows you to change your handlebar height and your reach a little bit there. But then also you kind of have the riser bars that you can loosen up and then kind of swing the angle of those to change your reach even more. So pretty cool there. Definitely makes sense to have a fairly wide height range like that. So we have a suspension fork up front that's really helping to soften the ride. That has, I believe, about 70 millimeters of travel is what we measured. So yeah, definitely quite a bit of cushion there. And then speaking of cushion, I gotta mention this saddle. This thing is huge. It's very thick, very comfy. Kind of feel like I'm sitting on, a sofa right now. It's very nice. And you also get a little bit of cushion from the tires as well. So those are 20 inches by 3 inches. They're made by Chow Yang, and they've got puncture protection. But that wheel diameter and width means that the bike is pretty maneuverable. It's got some good stability, and then obviously if you kind of ride with some lower tire pressure, you can get a little bit of cushion there as well. Let's go ahead and announce ourselves. On your left. Thank you. And last thing we have to talk about, at least for now, is the 750 watt hub motor with a cadence sensor. So of course you have preset speed limits there like we talked about earlier. Very easy to control your speed. Don't have to put a lot of effort in, pedal effort, if you've got this bike loaded down with a lot of weight. So pretty cool there. And then, we also need to talk about the Heybike app, but let's bounce back to the studio for a couple minutes, chat about some things, and then I'll see you back out here to go over the app. So all in all, the Hauler has a pretty decent foundation, and I found it very comfortable to ride, but there were a few areas with room for improvement. Starting off with the height, range, and fit, I mentioned that there were 6 inches of adjustment in saddle height, and that's not quite accurate. There are actually about 8 inches, but we noticed that if the cargo basket is installed, it prevents the saddle from reaching its lowest possible position, and it also prevents the second battery from being removed. So just note that you will need to remove the basket if you want to charge that battery separately. When loaded up with cargo, so again that 55-pound sandbag, the bike generally felt good when moving straight, but I noticed quite a bit of frame flex and some less precise handling, especially when cornering. Locking out the fork should help to some degree, but we encourage Heybike to stiffen up the frame on the next version of the bike to improve its overall ride feel. The Hauler also includes 2 kickstands, so there's a rather tall center stand that can help keep the bike balanced when loading it down, and there's a standard chainstay mounted kickstand that we found best for when you're all packed up. I noticed that the center stand dragged on the ground pretty often when I was cornering, so we also recommend that Heybike find a lower profile stand to fix that. I liked that the bike's overall pedal experience was easy, with the motor putting out a lot of power and having adjustable speed limits in each assist level, but one of the bigger points of critique that I have is about the bike's motor engagement, which seemed fairly inconsistent. There were times after I hit the brakes or when I was getting started that the motor took multiple full rotations of the cranks to engage, and that's really not ideal when the bike is loaded up with extra weight. Sure, riders can use the throttle to get started, but there's still a delay when switching over to pedaling, so we'd prefer the motor to just engage faster from the start. That's a fair amount of downsides, so I want to bring things back around and talk about one of the big positives with this bike, which is the Heybike app. Let's go back out to the bike path so I can walk you through the app, and then we'll wrap things up back here.
All right, I wanted to go ahead and walk you guys through the Heybike app here that I have pulled up. So you can see right away we have a picture of the bike that we're paired to. We have a battery charge readout with a percentage, which is very nice because we don't actually see that on the bike's display. And then there's a Bluetooth icon there that shows that we are paired with a bike. The first thing to see below that, interestingly, before I connected the app to the bike had 5 pedal assist settings, and then now once I have it paired, we're looking at 3 essentially. But this first thing that they're calling gear division gives you the option to basically have one additional 0 power setting where there is no pedal assist. So when if you choose this one that's just 1 to 3, whenever you turn the bike on, it will automatically be in that lowest setting. The next thing to look at beneath here is just some ride summaries. I haven't actually recorded anything with the app yet, but we'll look at that here in a sec. We also have a power button that allows you to turn the bike on and off. The second panel here is that sort of navigation panel. So you can see that it's showing a yellow dot for where we are, and then you can get navigation to things. Let's go ahead and see if it'll take us to Cracker Barrel. So this system does work with either Apple or Google Maps. So if you pull up a location, either by typing in keywords or finding it and putting down a pin, you can hit go. It'll give you the option for either Apple or Google Maps, and then for some reason it's kind of reading my location down by work. It is showing where I am now, which, fortunately it's picking up the bike path, and it's showing that, I could go kind of right up there. So, okay, it's working, maybe not perfectly, but it's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and get back to the Heybike app. So if you hit go and do that, then it will track your ride data. The next panel is called Store, and so this is basically like a list of bike shops in the area. You can see we have quite a few. And then we also have a 4th panel that is kind of a summary of your account and all of your personal data there, as well as your rides there. But there was one other thing I wanted to go back and look at further. If we go back to the home page, so up in the top right, if you own multiple bikes from Heybike, you can switch between those with this icon. You can see that we only have one paired to the bike now, or to the app now. But then if you go into this other kind of icon, we have the bike settings, and this is really where the customization stuff comes in. So you can change the bike's name. You can allow multiple riders to connect to the app, which is actually really cool. Most apps don't allow you to do that. And you can upgrade the firmware from here, so that's over-the-air updates. But then this personalize is kind of really where the cool stuff is. So to start off, I'm actually going to go to this second panel where it says Other Settings. This first thing that says Apply Personalization Settings with the toggle switch, that is really what you want to turn on right away so that any changes that you make automatically sync immediately with the bike. You can adjust the backlight intensity there if you need to, reset your trip, reset to default settings, period, if you need to, but do the apply personalization settings first. And then if we go back to speed settings, we can change our units, we can change our top speed with this slider. So right now we are basically in the class 2 mode. We can adjust this up to 28 miles per hour for pedal assist, which makes it a class 3. We have a throttle speed limiter, so that basically connects the throttle speed to the maximum that is set with this slider. Again, we have that PAS level adjustment that we talked about earlier, and then probably the coolest thing at the bottom here is the ability to adjust the speeds of the 3 pedal assist settings now. So you can see that the default is 9, 13, and 28 miles per hour. We actually measured speeds a little bit above that, especially in the 9 and 13 area, but you can change those just by sliding that around, and then that will sync with the bike, and you're all set to go. So very cool app, a lot of good features there. Let's go ahead and bounce back to the studio and wrap things up.
So after that recording, I ended up playing with the navigation and ride tracking features a little bit more. I noticed that if I was using navigation, I had to return to the Heybike app and hit the arrow button on the navigation panel for it to track those rides, but otherwise, at least when using Google Maps, the system worked well. The app itself is pretty robust, and I'm always a big fan of anything that gives users more customization options, so I think it's definitely worth diving into and personalizing how the bike behaves. I have one final point of critique to mention, and that's that the Hauler's cockpit layout felt fairly cramped. We moved the throttle lever that was between the shifter and the right grip when we got the bike to avoid accidentally engaging the throttle. That made using the throttle a little awkward, but there really wasn't another option considering the big module for the lights and turn signals on the left handlebar, as well as the main control panel. Overall, I think it's workable, but there is some room for improvement, and I think that kind of summarizes the Hauler's ride quality overall. There are some things that I think could be tightened up to improve the user experience, but that's also not uncommon for bikes that try to pack in a ton of features while also trying to maintain a super approachable price. It's not an easy thing to pull off an affordable cargo e-bike with a dual battery option and a bunch of uncommon features like turn signals and a super big and comfy saddle, but that's exactly what Heybike did with the Hauler. Overall, I thought the bike was enjoyable and fun to ride, and I really did like the Heybike app and all the customization options that it offers. We were generally pleased with the bike's results in our range, brake, and hill tests, and felt that it did a solid job for its specs and price. The Hauler is a heavy bike, which is something that affected its performance, and it's important to keep that in mind if you need to transport the bike, but of course the battery or batteries can be removed to lighten the load. There are some fairly big areas with room for improvement, including reducing frame flex, improving motor engagement, and correcting the dragging that can happen with the center stand. We also hope to see an app update that allows users to switch between 3 and 5 pedal assist settings with the touch of a button instead of needing to unpair the app with the bike. As it is, the Hauler is a promising budget cargo option that could be even better once a few elements are dialed in. If you'd like to take a closer look at the bike, we'll leave a couple of links down in the video description. One will take you to our written review at electricbikereport.com, and the second leads to the bike's page on the Heybike website. Again, please be sure to use that link when you make a purchase if you decide that the Hauler is the bike for you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us your thoughts and questions down in the comments section. But thanks for taking a ride with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Heybike Hauler.